So as you know, very, very quickly, we are rapidly approaching budget day. Lots of stuff probably to talk about in the wake of that. Absolutely. Um, I've stayed away from like the speculations because you never really know what's going to be in a budget until it's announced and said on the day. But one of the things that is becoming at least very, very clear is that there's going to be a lot more money allocated for HS2. And HS2, as I've said multiple times, really needs to be built. It is a vital piece of infrastructure that we've long, long needed, would massively help boost the capacity on our railways. Once you do that, then you can start to do a whole range of other things with our very old, very, very old Victorian railway infrastructure that is desperately need of that. But not only that, then you can build like HS3, HS4, HS5, HS6. There are a ton of other high speed rail opportunities and lines that could be built from this. And getting this built to begin with is going to be a very, very big step. But it is a very, very big commitment. These things take a long time, as big infrastructure projects tend to do. But we've had a Tory government for the past 14 years, and this started off in the last Labour administration under Gordon Brown. And yet, in 14 years of Tory rule, very, very little of HS2 actually got done. Very little indeed. To a point where they were like, in Rishi Sunak, well, I'm just going to scrap the whole thing. And of course, I still said that the West Mayor of Birmingham at the time, or the West Midlands, chickened out. He said he was going to resign. He should have absolutely stuck to his guns and resigned on that. Absolutely. Would have sent a very strong message, I think, than anything else. But, you know, new government, new day. And guess what? They are interested in building HS2. They recognize why, you know, we need to build HS2, why you build these infrastructure projects. So we're going to go over the media report, the press briefing from not only the Department of Transport, but of course HS2, and of course Louise Haigh, the MP, who is the Secretary for Transport in charge of HS2, what they had to say on this, because there's some interesting things that and interesting implications, of course, for HS2 being built and being made. So we're going to get on into that. But before we do that, oh wow, I am. Oh, what's going on here? Hold on. Ah, there we go. A lot better. So, before we do get back into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, as always, there's the Patreon button down below. There's the Buy Me Coffee button. There's the YouTube thank you button as well. And of course, there's the Pony Club you can join as well. And thank you very much to everyone who does help support those. Even if you do just click the like and share button, it all helps. So, let's crack on then into this. As we said, this is the PR briefing from the Department for Transport. So, let's see what they had to say this. So, action now to take control of the cost of HS2 and bring the project back on track has been announced by the Transport Tech Secretary today of the 20th of October. So that was last Tuesday. But after years now of failed delivery, just 1 month into the wall, Louise Haigh has now warned that the extent of the challenge now inherited on HS2 has become clear, with costs being now allowed to spiral out of control and failure to deliver to budget, which again is true. The costs were spiraling out of control. There were reasons for that. Part of the reason was inflation. That was one big reason. Another one was seemingly this blank check of credit cards that the Tories just gave to HS2 and delivered seeming nothing to budget. And we'll get that into the moment, because there's another thing about contracts, which he brings up in a moment, which is, I think, probably the biggest announcement out of this. So over the years, the cost now of phase one has soared due to poor project management, inflation, poor performance from the supply chains, and without any insufficient explanation as to what is to be done to deliver to budget. In response, the Secretary of State has now launched an immediate independent review to ensure that lessons are learned, to support action, and to ensure that the costs of HS2 are brought under control. So, excellent. Independent review that's going to be launched, going to be reporting back relatively quickly, I think. So the government, of course, has been very clear that it is not resurrecting phase two of HS2, which is again very sad, which was cancelled under the previous administration. The government does recognise the concerns of connectivity between Birmingham and Manchester, but this is primary focus is now the safety delivery of HS2 between Birmingham and London with now the lowest reasonable cost, and the Secretary of State has made this objective clear to HS2 Limited. And again, that is easily the most disappointing thing out of this, that phase two, the Birmingham to Manchester, because that was the whole point of HS2. The benefits of HS2 were not, London to Birmingham. It was the Birmingham to Manchester line. That was where the capacity was going to be freed up. So that being not being resurrected is incredibly sad. But at least they have recognized about connectivity concerns. But that is incredibly sad that they have decided not to continue with that. But something is better than nothing in some cases. And of course, it does not mean that in the future you cannot continue. You could indeed continue from Birmingham to Manchester. This is something they absolutely need to do. This is just a matter of urgency. You look at any of the rail experts, and they've said, okay, you build this, but all you do now is you create an even bigger bottleneck from Birmingham to Manchester. You increase the capacity problems. And you've got literally a 10-year gap of what to do. You can't just sit back and just do nothing about this. It's insane not to do anything about it. So to achieve this, the government is also now reinstating ministerial oversight of the project to ensure now greater accountability. This will now see regular meetings starting immediately with both the Transport Secretary and Rail Minister, Lord Henley. Alongside the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, will also challenge the delivery and remove obstacles to securing its full benefits of the railway now most cost effectively. Again, full benefits. To get those full benefits, you need to have the Birmingham-Manchester part to do it. So Transport Secretary Lorraine Haig said, one of my first jobs as Transport Secretary has been to urgently review the position I have inherited on HS2. It has long been clear that the cost of HS2 have been allowed to spiral out of control. Since becoming Transport Secretary, I have seen up and close the scale of failure in this project delivery, and it's dire. Taxpayers have a right to expect that HS2 delivery is delivered efficiently, and I won't stand for anything less. I've promised to now work fast and try to fix things. That's exactly what I've now announced and urged. Measures to now try and get a grip on the HS2 costs and ensure that taxpayers' money is put to good use. It's high time that we made sure the lessons are learned and the mistakes of HS2 are never repeated again. Again, build HS2 beyond Birmingham up to Manchester, because you need it. You cannot get away with it. It's just like So this major transport project governance and, of course, assurance review will be led by Senior Infrastructure Delivery Advisor James Stewart, and will present recommendations back to the government this winter. So again, at least we'll see what these reviews are. Like I say, that's going to be pretty quick turnaround for sort of this review, but we'll see what they have to say. So it will also investigate now the oversight of major transport and infrastructure projects, including the effectiveness now of forecasting and reporting of cost, schedule, and benefits, as well as actions to deliver cost efficiencies. This review will also primarily draw on the experiences of HS2 today, and to ensure recommendations about learnings are also applied to delivery as well as to future projects. One of the things that worries me here is future governments are going to learn the long lessons, maybe even this government, about building high-speed rail. Has HS2 just become so toxic and so bad that people, if anyone were to ever even talk about, well, actually, we do need more high-speed rail, that those ideas are just almost killed dead on arrival? That language around that is a bit worrying, but we'll see what happens into the future. Hopefully, we'll learn the right lessons, not the wrong ones. Separately, of course, the incentives, of course, the main HS2 contractors are also being reviewed, which could lead to some contracts being renegotiated or amended. And this is the big one. These contractors are being reviewed, renegotiated, or being amended, because it's these contractors who have not been able to deliver to budget on time or even to budget what they are building. So this is the most important fact here, because now you've got a government who said, oh, you might have been given that contract, but if you ain't delivering to budget, you ain't delivering on time, guess what? Time for a review, time for a renegotiation, or prepare to be amended. And that immediately does signal a lot of willingness by this government to say, okay, you were given this contract, you're not delivering. Maybe you lose it. Maybe it gets reviewed. Maybe it gets amended. Maybe it gets completely renegotiated. And I think a government willingness to be able to do that does signal their intent, not only just here, but maybe in other areas as well. Maybe, for example, up in Teesside. That could prove very interesting if that does happen. Today's announcement does also come as the Transport Secretary writes the Chief Chair of HS2 Limited, recognizing the collective responsibility in reaching the current position, stressing the need to now focus immediately on actions to turn things around and bring costs back under control. This is all effort to get a grip on the cost and management of HS2 Limited. Will also be shortly be taken over by new Chief Executive Mark Wilde, who has also an extensive background delivering transport projects and will be responsible for resetting the project. On the arrival of the Transport Secretary, will now take the assessment of the current position of cost, schedule, and culture, and providing a plan of action to deliver the remaining work as cost effectively as possible, including at a realistic budget and schedule. The government will also continue to publish 6-month reports on the progress of HS2, ensuring a complete accountability and transparency on the project's progress. So, disappointing. The fact that they are not going to resurrect phase 2. That is disappointing, because it was phase 2 where the biggest benefits were going to be had. It was phase 2 where the biggest benefits were going to be felt. And it's annoying the fact that they even acknowledge these connectivity issues. So, okay, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You cannot just sit about and just say, well, we'll let rail chaos happen because, infrastructure projects like this, you look at all the other high-speed rails, right from like the Shinkansen in Japan, Germany's, even Spain's. These things have come over budget, over time. They've taken longer to build than they've thought. But guess what? All of them repaid, good, massive improvement to GDP. The Shinkansen adds like billions to the Japanese economy. Same for high-speed rail elsewhere. It's added billions to their economy. And he's just like, just a no-brainer. If you want growth, Rachel Reeves, phase 2. For Christ's sake, phase 2 is right there. Just do it. Just build it. Anyway, so as always, disappointing, but some good stuff as well, especially those contract renegotiations. Having a government that is willing to be able to take on these things and say, look, if you don't deliver, we're going to renegotiate your contract. That sends a very strong message. As I said it before, this is definitely a new government, because tell you what, Tory government wouldn't do this. Tory government would not do this at all. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.